Hirons. Okay. Hey y'all. Hey y'all. Welcome to our Very Bookish channel and to our December wrap-up video.
Hello, fellow book lovers. It is now a couple days into January, which means it's time to recap December and all of the great books that we read in December. Well, I hope all the great books. At least I hope for Amanda. She had a bunch of great books. I had my first 2-star for the whole year, so obviously it wasn't all great books. I had one 2-star book, which shocked me, to be honest. It wasn't one that I thought. And I also had more 5-star reads. I had books all over the place in terms of what I thought of them. And let's just dig right in. The one I just finished, and I started in December, finished in a couple days into January. So I'm just going to mention it in my December recap. We're going to be posting a vlog because we did do Divine Rivals, which 5-star read, loved it so much. And of course, when this came out the day after Christmas, we hurried up and got it and read it. At least I did. I think Amanda was a little more patient with this one. And I ended up finishing it in about a week. I really love this one, but if you want to hear all of the thoughts on this, we will be posting a vlog of all of our thoughts on Ruthless Vows, so keep an eye out for that one.
All right, so I have been looking at my Goodreads, and I have got a list of books that I read in the month of December. And for December, it was a busy month for me, and I didn't get as much reading done as I wanted to, but I read 6 books in the month of December. And the very first book that I finished and that I want to talk about is Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. If you watched our Bookish Resolutions video, you will know that Empire of the Vampire was one of my favorite books of 2023, along with the Empyrean series, which is Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. And I have said so much about this book. I feel like I keep talking about it, but it is so good. It is considered grimdark fantasy. It sets place in a very cold world full of vampires and shapeshifters and half vampires, and there's lots of sword fighting and magic, and it's just a genius, brilliant book by Jay Kristoff. There are illustrations in the book that are amazing, and I can't say enough about this book. If you guys love fantasy and you like a lot of action in your stories, then I highly recommend you try this book. The prologue, or the very beginning, it's not really called chapter 1, but the very beginning of the book, right off the rip, just had me entranced. I just loved it. So in the beginning, you're following a half a vampire. His name is Gabriel de Leon, and his mom is human and his father was a vampire. So in this world, vampires can be very persuasive, and they sort of use their powers to seduce women that they want, whether it be human women, vampire women, whatever. And his mother was seduced by this vampire, and she had Gabriel through the union. So he is half vampire, and he has a little bit of magic. I don't want to say magic per se. There is magic, but it's not really like the abilities the vampire has. He does have some magic, and you're just sort of learning. In the very beginning, you are in a jail cell where Gabriel's being held, and there is a vampire interviewing him on behalf of the lady vampire that kind of rules over these other vampires. And he's interviewing Gabriel, and he wants Gabriel's story of this thing they call the Grail, and how he found it and how he lost it. And so Gabriel's sitting in prison, and he's not wanting to be cooperative, but they coerce him to be cooperative. They bribe him. They bribe him to be cooperative, and he starts to tell his story. So you are following him telling this vampire his life story, and he does start out when he's a kid, so you kind of get a little bit of his childhood and his upbringing, and then you just learn more and more about Gabriel and how he came to be and what his powers are and some of the things that he's done in his life. It's very clear in the very beginning that he is a very well-known person. There's songs and stories that have been written about him, and he has achieved some great accomplishments, slayed a lot of vampires and some evil beings in the world. So you just start unfolding the story, and it's just a brilliant. You're following him telling his story to the vampire, and the vampire is recording it, and then it'll kind of break away, and you'll start hearing their conversation between him and the vampire, and then they'll go back to the story. And there's illustrations throughout the book that are gorgeous, beautiful illustrations, so that's always fun and always helps with the visuals. My only complaint about Empire of the Vampire is that the story doesn't go in pure chronological order, and there is a reason for it, and Gabriel explains it, so that's why I still gave this book 5 stars. This is a 5-star read for me, but you do kind of jump between the beginning, his childhood, him growing up, to doing his training, and then you jump ahead and you skip a middle part, which is explained why Gabriel doesn't want to talk about the middle part. But still, I don't really like jumping timelines usually in books, but it's just done so well and so creative. I do have an Arc of Empire of the Damned, which is the second book in this trilogy. I think it's a trilogy, and it's going to be coming out in March. So I will be doing an ARC review of that book, and I am loving that book so far. I'm not quite done with it yet. Almost have like 100-ish more pages, but so far it's 5-star read unless something goes really awry in the last 100 pages of Empire of the Damned. This Empire of the Damned is probably going to be even more beloved to me than Empire of the Vampire. I'm loving the story, the new characters that have been introduced, and then things that have happened along Gabriel's journey have just been amazing. So please, if you love fantasy, if you love action, if you love vampires, you need to pick up Empire of the Vampire. Just start reading it. I promise you won't regret it.
I'm just gonna start with the 2-star, like to get the bad news out of the way. I picked up a book because I had seen on Netflix there was a movie based on this book, and I thought, oh, I'll hurry up and read the book. I was stuck at home because I was sick, and I picked it up. I started to like it, and then it got very repetitive. And the book is Leave the World Behind. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Rumaan Alam, maybe? I don't know. I apologize if I ruined that name. So I've wanted to read this book for a while. It's been on my TBR at least, I want to say, a year. It's been out for a couple years now. I want to say 2019 or 2020 is when it came out. I'm pretty sure it was 2020. And the premise sounded really interesting. There's a couple who go to a remote place to get away from the city, New York City, and they were on vacation, and then in the middle of the night, a couple knocks on the door, and the place that they were staying at was a Airbnb, and the couple that comes to the door claims to be the owners of the house, and the premise is, do you believe that, at least I thought it was, do you believe that that is the true story? They're coming saying that there's something catastrophic that has happened in the city, and you don't know if you should believe them or not. So in the book, there's nothing really said about what is actually happening. And even the couple don't really tell you. Like, you don't know, other than they kind of hint that something has occurred. So it leaves you to imagine whatever you want to imagine, which sometimes I don't mind that premise all the time, where you kind of fill in the gaps. But I feel, at least when I was reading this at the time, And I said in another video when we were doing the recap for 2023 that I was very irritable because I was sick. So maybe timing wise, it just didn't hit me at a good place. But I got very agitated and irritated because it seemed just repetitive and you weren't being told what's going on, and it's very open-ended. So then I watched the movie on Netflix, and what's really funny is the movie actually fills in those gaps for you and tells you what is going on in the world and shows you. And I ended up liking the movie much more, and I think I just really wanted to know what was happening. I think that was my big issue, was I just really wanted to know, okay, what was happening. So 2-star for me at least. I think sometimes, I know I have said this in the past, when the mood we're in, I think very much says how we're going to feel about a book and how much we are invested in that book for whatever we're going through in our lives. And the time I read this one just wasn't speaking to me, and I didn't like it.
The next book I read was Christmas Presents by Lisa Unger, and that was my December mystery Christmas themed read. So if you have not checked out that vlog, please do so. I will link it up here. I will also link it in the description below. That was a mediocre book for me. I do like Lisa Unger, and I have read a couple of her books, but this was a short novella book. It was under 200 pages. I can't remember how many pages it was, but and it was a borrow from the library. I did borrow the physical book. I'm probably not going to purchase it because I didn't love it a lot, but it was a fun Christmas sort of mystery read. So I would recommend that book if you still are reading Christmas things, or maybe save it for Christmas next year.
What's funny is, being sick, I also picked up, I don't know what order I had read them in now. So I also read The Good Part by Sophie Cousins. This was on a Most Anticipated back late summer, I think. And it's a romance. And I don't always read romances. Sometimes they seem hokey to me, or just, I don't know, too fluffy or something. And I picked this one up, and I ended up loving this book. I couldn't put it down, even though I was irritable and sick. And I really enjoyed this one. It was charming. I loved the storyline and how she wrote all the different parts of it. It very much reminded me, and she even says in the afterword what inspired her. So I felt very vindicated when I kept thinking of different movies along the way, and she said those are the ones that inspired her. One of which is 13 Going on 30, starring Jennifer Garner. I thought that was a very cute movie. Very much those vibes in this book. And there's another movie with Nicolas Cage. It's a Christmas movie, Family Man. And I remember even when I read the premise of this book, it was reminding me of that movie, Family Man. And she said that that was another movie that inspired her. So I absolutely thought this was a fantastic book. I gave it 5 stars. So I went from a 2 to a 5 in the couple days that I was quarantined being sick. So yeah, if you love romance, cute stories, cute premises, love any of those movies, you'll adore this book. Loved it so much.
And then after I read Christmas Presents by Lisa Unger, I was still kind of in the Christmassy book mood, and occasionally I do like little cozy mysteries. And another booktuber recommended Santa, Sunrises, and Suspicions. So I borrowed that audiobook from my library, so I did listen to it on audio, and that book was really fun in the beginning. I really loved the characters. They were really cute. So you're following a woman who kind of owns a campground in the Appalachian Mountains, and there is a murder that happens in their church around Christmas, and this town kind of gets together to solve the murder. It's just really cute, fun read. The characters are really cute. They have cute little Southern accents. So that was fun. My only complaint about the book was that I felt like it lost me a little bit sometimes because it is part of a series, and this is probably my fault, but it is part of a series. So it kind of references things that happened earlier in the series, which I didn't get because this is the only book from the series that I have read. And then I kind of wanted the book to end. It's not a very long book at all. I think the audio book was like under 5 hours long. So it's not a very long book, but by the end, I was just ready. I was just tired of it and ready for it to end. So I do recommend it for fun characters if you want a quick, cute read, but it wasn't like an amazing book for me.
Another vlog that we did that was the mystery that we pick every month. Mystery as in what is it, not mystery as in genre, though I did pick a mystery thriller. We had the theme of Christmas vibes, and I ended up picking one of my favorite authors, Lisa Unger, Christmas Presents. It is a very short book. It's considered a novella, and I thought this was actually really good. It wasn't my favorite of hers. My favorite continues to be Confessions on the 745. I still enjoyed this book. In the vlog, which Amanda can tag and you guys can watch, I did say I felt like I wanted more, but it's a novella and I really love her writing, so I think it's not necessarily the story's fault or her fault. I just wanted more in terms of the story or from her. So go ahead and click on that if you wanted to hear more about our thoughts on Christmas Presents.
And then the next book that I read is The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. And this is Molly the Maid series. And I did read The Maid. And I did read The Maid by Nita Prose, which is the first book in the series. So if you haven't read The Maid, you need to read The Maid and then read The Mystery Guest. But this book, you guys, these books are 5 stars for me because I just love Molly the Maid's character so much. Nita Prose writes Molly's character so well. I know I've mentioned this before, but this was a 5-star read for me. And if you read The Maid, then in book 2, The Mystery Guest, you're following Molly the Maid again. She's still working at the hotel. She's been promoted, so she's really happy about that. And there is a death in the motel. But you learn a lot more about Molly's past, which I loved. And this book does jump from current day murder mystery to past when Molly was a child, but I didn't mind it in this book. The writing is just so great, and the storyline flows so well that I did not mind jumping back and forth. And it's also fun to learn more about Molly and her interaction and her relationship with her grandmother, and you even get little snippets of her mother, so you kind of understand more about why her grandmother was taking care of her and helping Molly throughout her childhood more than her mother. So very good, 5 stars. I can't wait for number 3 to come out hopefully this year.
Another 5-star read that I read, and I had gotten it from the library, and it was right before I got Ruthless Vows and right after I was done quarantining. I picked up at the library None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, which Amanda can put a picture of it right there. I have never read Lisa Jewell. I was under the impression for some reason that I had, but then when I looked at my Goodreads, I don't see anything listed. And when I saw her previous books, none of them I don't think I ever actually read. So my first Lisa Jewell, and I became an immediate fan. I loved this book. It's not a typical twisty psychological thriller where there's a twist every 2 seconds, but I kind of would call it a slowish burn. I don't know if I would say it's a slow burn because for me those really are drawn out, but I felt more invested than what a slow burn usually ends up being. I just love the perspective she gave of the 2 women. And one is a not famous podcaster, but a pretty known podcaster. And she happens to be at a restaurant the same day that another woman is there with her husband, and they share the same birthday. So the podcaster is having a birthday party. The other woman is there with her husband celebrating her birthday. And the woman that's with her husband kind of becomes not obsessed right away, but she's really paying attention and like being stalkerish towards the famous podcaster or the known podcaster. So she ends up following up and kind of stalking her and convincing her to do a podcast of her doing changes in her life, because the podcaster does episodes on women that have been very successful at changing their life. So she convinces her, why don't you do a series where you talk to me before I actually make these changes? And then it's a series going through all the phases of her making these changes, positive changes in her life. Then you end up finding out a lot of information as they start talking about all of these interesting, kind of shocking things about this woman. I'm forgetting their names at the minute, and I don't have the book to check their names, but it ends up where you find out more and more information and things just keep escalating. And I don't want to give away the last part of the book, but I feel things start going very quickly in the second half of that book. And I couldn't believe what was happening. It's one of those books that you really just want to talk to someone about. And thankfully, I had someone I could talk to about. Instant fan of Lisa Jewell after this book. I did read on the psychological thriller group on Facebook that they feel that's not even her best book. So now I'm greatly intrigued, and I really want to read something else by Lisa Jewell just to see what else she has up her sleeve. I very much became a fan of Lisa Jewell after that book.
And the next book I read was Kingdom of the Cursed by Carrie Maniscalco, and this is book number 2 in Kingdom of the Wicked YA trilogy. And I'm reading this YA trilogy because I bought Carrie's newest book, Throne of the Fallen, and I want to get to that, but that takes place in the same world as the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, so I wanted to read those books. And I have to say that this was a fun book. You're continuing the story. It has a very different feel than the first book because I guess the setting is different. Because in Kingdom of the Wicked, the first book in the trilogy, you are in Sicily somewhere, and the book takes place in our world. But when you get to Kingdom of the Cursed, the book takes place in the underworld. So you have a totally different setting. You're in a totally different kingdom. And it was fun, but this book was not YA, y'all. I don't know how publishers are getting away with calling these books YA, but Kingdom of the Cursed is not YA. There is sexually explicit content, probably 4 or 5 scenes of sexually explicit content at least in this book. So I would not recommend this for YA. I would not recommend this for your 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, possibly older YA. So maybe this book should be considered more new adult, but definitely not recommended for YA.
And lastly, I read Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. It's an ARC that I got, and I do need to do an ARC review for this. I really enjoyed this one too. I didn't give it 5 stars though. I gave this 4 stars. I am a fan of Sally Hepworth. I still feel that the one I love the most by her is The Good Sister, and I want to say that's the first one that I read. I'm pretty sure Amanda has at least read that one too. I know she has. I'm pretty sure she's read at least that one. But this one was just very odd, I want to say, because I didn't really know exactly what it was about, other than it's about some foster girls, and when they're older, they find out that there were remains found at the house that they lived together. But then you find out you see them current day and how they interact with each other and what their lives are now. And then there are flashbacks where you see them and how they came to be fostered by this woman who took care of them, and all of the things that happened. And it was just very odd, and I was kind of shocked by some of it. And I kept coming up with theories as to what was going to happen, and I didn't end up being right. But it was, to me, a very riveting story. I very much enjoyed it. Hopefully I'll be able to do an ARC review to talk more specifically and in depth on this one, because I would want to talk more on this one. It was a very interesting read. And this one comes out in April.
And the last book that I read while I was traveling. I had a very long car ride. So I read Fantastic Land by Mike Brockoven. And this is my first book by him. And I thought the book was good. At first, I was really, really into the book. I thought, wow, this book is fun. This book is different. You're following many different point of views, and you're kind of following the story of this hurricane that hits Florida, and there is a theme park called Fantastic Land, and they're trying to compete with Disney World. So it's like on that level of theme park. And are some employees that stay behind to take care of the park. They're paid extra and they want to do it, so they stay behind. And in the beginning, you even get point of views of some of the guests that have to leave the hotel in a hurry because this hurricane is coming in, and no one predicted it would get this far inland, and no one predicted the severity of it. So it's rolling through. They're rushing to get all of the guests out of the area, and then just these employees stay behind. And after the employees have been stranded for a couple of days, things start getting very dark, and they start grouping up, and you have these gangs that kind of fight each other inside of the theme park. So 5 out of 5 stars for setting and creativity for me. But the book overall is definitely not 5 stars. I think I gave it 3, maybe 4, because it feels very repetitive. Even in the beginning, you're getting a news reporter reporting about the news. Then you're getting a guest that's watching the TV and hearing about the news, the storm rolling in. So it feels very repetitive. You're getting multiple points of view, but you're covering the same thing over and over in the beginning. And a little bit through the middle picks up, and that's when all the action starts, when the people start fighting, and you're getting points of views from different clans, and you're piecing together what happens to all these different people. So the middle was pretty exciting, a little repetitive, but then the ending, again, got very, very repetitive. I mean, you had to read different points of view of different people being rescued over and over. You get the point of view of one of the authorities going in to rescue some of the kids and the things that they saw. So there is little tidbits of new information with different point of views, but very repetitive, and I don't like that. I like a story that keeps churning. I don't want to reread a bunch of things. But that being said, the book wasn't terribly long. I did borrow the ebook from my library, and I read it on my tablet while I was traveling. So it wasn't a very long read. It wasn't a very long book, but it got kind of repetitive for me. However, I'm very interested in reading more by this author because the story was fairly interesting. It was creative. I did appreciate different approach to this novel. So I would like to read some more of this author, maybe some of his backlist if you guys want to recommend some books to me, or definitely maybe new novels that he comes out with.
December had a little bit of everything: a 2-star read, a 5-star read, a couple 4-star reads, and actually 2 5-star reads, I think. And I very much enjoyed getting to my 50 for the year 2023. I look forward to January and doing a whole new year of reads, and I'm hoping to hit 50 once again. So that's it for December, and until next time.